where the West begins in Fort Worth, Texas, to around the globe. You are listening to Talk of the Night. And now, your host, Paranormal Phil. Thank you, and good evening, good morning, wherever you may be around the world, around the globe, or even in your own backyard. I am Paranormal Phil, and tonight we are joined by my guest, Bruce Olaos, and I hope I didn't mess that up, but anyways, we're going to get to him and his book, Anzar the Progenitor, and I know I messed that up too, but we'll get to that here in a second. But first, this story is up on the Talk of the Night website under Story of the Day. UFO expert absolutely floored by revelations from Obama Library. And of course, if you follow the UFO story, you know that these our government and governments around the world have UFO files that they don't like to release too much, but this actually was a release of Freedom Act, Information Act to get these files. And a leading researcher into government secrets say he may have found the jackpot of documents on potential extraterrestrial encounters. John Greenwald Jr., who operates the Black Vault, a website dedicated to revealing dedicated classified documents obtained via Freedom of Information Act requests, said he asked the Barack Obama Presidential Library for anything it has on UFOs and related phenomenon. What he got back left him absolutely floored. And of course, you can see that letter up on, if you click on the story, you can see that, but I'm going to quickly mention what it entailed. The Obama Presidential Library just informed me that they have approximately 3,440 pages and 26,271 electronic files that pertain to requests for AATIP, UFO, UAP, and AAWSAP. So we all know that they have this these files on UFOs in our government. Of course, a lot of us don't think too much into it unless you really have an interest in the paranormal or ufology. But I'm sure that they got something out there that they're not telling us, and we're only getting snippets of that. But we're going to talk about UFOs, ancient alien mystics, and of course his book, Anzar the Progenitor, and also other books and other things that he's got going on. So please welcome my guest, Bruce Olaos.
Hey, thank you, Philip. And you did a good job with my name and the name of the book, so don't worry about it. You did well.
All right, so tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, okay. Well, I was born in Seattle, and my parents were immigrants from Norway. They came over after World War II. I went to, I started at the University of Washington in 1976, dropped out, joined the Army, spent 6 years active in the Army, was a jail guard. Then I went on to go to flight school and became a helicopter pilot. Did a couple of years in the reserves, and then went to work at Boeing as a defense contractor in the B-1 bomber, B-1B. And then I went and worked on the commercial side of Boeing, which I hated. I like the military side of Boeing better. And I was used to it. The pace, with the government was better than the commercial side. But anyway, so I was going to school, and I got my bachelor's, got my master's, and then I decided to go get my PhD because I wanted to be a college professor. And so I went to Bowling Green State University and graduated there in 1993 and kicked around back in Seattle, part-time jobs, part-time teaching like most most people who want to be a professor, you got to do about 5-6 years of part-time teaching first. And then finally I got a full-time gig down here in Southern California at Citrus College. And so that was in 98. So I've been here a long time, going on 25 years. So I've seen a lot of changes in academia, as they call it, in the college world. There's been a lot of changes since I started. Yeah, not all of them good.
Yeah, there's always been a lot of changes in colleges. Sometimes I wonder about it.
Yeah. And along the way, I've been married a few times, divorced a few times, had 4 kids. I got 2 grandkids, and written about 12 books, including 2 comic books, written plays, had plays produced. I've been writing since I was a little kid. And the other thing, and probably why I'm here, is that I've led a very paranormal life since age 4. And it was kind of hidden because in the military, you can't really, especially, I had a security clearance, so it's pretty hard to start telling people, I talk to dead people and,
Oh, yeah, I know all about that. I had the same, kind of the same security clearance being down by the reactors.
Yeah, you would. You'd have to have one of the highest clearances. And then, so that's not a good place to talk about it. And so I kept that part of my life hidden, although the paranormal stuff kept happening. And same thing as a defense contractor at Boeing, I had an even higher clearance working there. And I couldn't talk about my experiences. So once again, stifled. And as a college professor, you can't go through the interviews there and they ask you, what other skills do you have besides, your academic training? You can't tell them that you talk to dead people either. So, or see aliens or whatever, you can't do any of that stuff. So I had to keep it hidden. And it wasn't until really recently, 2016, that a dear friend of mine passed away. Also, I grew up with him. His parents were Norwegian as well, Norwegian immigrants. And his name was Gene, and he passed away. And in October of 2016, he came to me in a vision. And I've had visions of people who've passed away. I've talked to people who were, passed on. And but this one was very different because he told me it was time to start telling my stories and not be afraid, that everything would be okay. And the timing was just about right, I guess. I still was kind of afraid, but he said, don't worry. He even gave me the name of the book I should publish. He said it should be called Timeless. And because he says where he is, there's no future, there's no past. It's all just happening right now, everything together. So he said, why don't you call it Timeless? And I said, okay. Next thing you know, over the next few years, I wrote a trilogy of timeless books. And then I wrote, after that, I wrote Anzar the Progenitor. That was the 4th paranormal book. Now, if you look at my publishing record before that, it's all just academic stuff. I wrote a book about the Vietnam War. I wrote a textbook for my U.S. history class. I wrote all kinds of political books. All of it's academic stuff. And then all of a sudden, I take this turn and start publishing paranormal books. So, and that's what I do now. I published Anzar, I guess, last year, and then I publish comic books too. I write comic books, and I have some really good artists illustrate them, and I teach, and that's what I do. So here I am, and I'm glad to be on the show with you, Philip.
Okay, yeah. So you mentioned that you've been into the paranormal since the age of 4. What really sparked your interest, or did it start then, or did it start later in life?
I thought when I was younger, I thought it was just natural, like everybody has these experiences, which generally they do, but they don't all acknowledge it. The difference was that my mom was very psychic, so my dad didn't like the paranormal at all. He was a kind of guy who wasn't afraid of very much. I mean, he was in a labor camp, a Nazi labor camp in World War II. He was an Alaska fisherman, like a Deadliest Catch kind of guy, not afraid of anything. But he was afraid of the paranormal. That was something that spooked him. And so, but my mom, she showed me how to read minds. We would have just, regular playing cards, and we'd read each other's minds, and we'd do it until my dad came in and told us to knock it off. So I just thought it was kind of normal. And, we go to, like, I remember going to a funeral, sitting next to my mom. It was open casket. And the corpse, the person there we knew was an old family friend who passed away, old Norwegian guy. He spoke to me, I didn't see his lips move, but I could hear it was his voice. And I just looked at my mom, and she smiled at me because Dad was right next to her, so she couldn't really acknowledge anything. Yes. But so I just considered it to be kind of normal, and I just kept having experiences, and I keep having experiences. Yes. The difference now, since 2016, is that I know how to manage them, because before they just happened, just frequently, randomly. And now I know what's going on, and I can I never say control it, because I don't think anybody can really control it. But
even as experienced as I am as a medium hyper empath and everything like that, I know how to kind of quiet it down and shut it down a little bit, but getting rid of it or silence it completely, I understand.
Yeah. So the best I think we can do is manage it, and you learn to live with it, and you make it useful to people and yourself, and try to do good. And so that is what in general, that's what's been going on. So I've had any kind of paranormal experience, from traditional ghosts, full bodied apparitions, to telekinesis and or psychokinesis and telepathy, and a few cryptid experiences too, and demons and angels, and and of course alien contact. So and to me, it's all interrelated. The theory I have is that, and not just me, but others too, that the spirit world, the alien world, and the quantum world are all really, the quantum world of subatomic, the subatomic world. It's all really the same, and they operate in the same realm, and so they're really more connected than people think. Even though the communities you were talking about, the ufology community, and then there's the paranormal community like ghost hunters and stuff, and a lot of times they don't want to cross fertilize. They say, oh, those UFO guys are crazy, and then they don't want to talk to them.
You got the cryptozoology field. And I've experienced all three, so
so that there's always they're trying to put up fences or whatever, and I'm saying knock those fences down, because it's all the same thing. They're all operating in the same realm. Let's get together and share information. So I've always tried to have that spirit of cooperation to really understand what's going on. Put our puzzle pieces together, as I always say.
Oh, yeah. Like with cryptozoology, Bigfoot, there's people that think Bigfoot and a lot of these creatures like the Loch Ness Monster, Chupacabra, they're all interdimensional, and which would pretty much put it in the spirit realm in a sense. I've had a couple of experiences. One was an actual Bigfoot experience, and it was in Oric, California, in Northern California, on the Redwood Highway, just I think 10 miles away from where probably the most famous Bigfoot film in the forests there, about 10 miles away from where I had this Bigfoot experience, and it was the same area. And that's, I think, most sightings. There have been more sightings there than any other place, I think, on Earth. And but it was pretty incredible. And then when I was younger, when I was a kid, I had kind of a wolfen experience in a creepy kind of like a pond, big pond. I grew up in Seattle. That's where I was born, and there was this graveyard, and by the graveyard there was a mortuary and then a crematorium, and you could take this dirt road down to this what we called the big pond, and surrounded by woods and moss covered, the kind of rainforest looking stuff. And I had a cryptid experience there too, and kind of a wolf creature. So I've had experience with just about everything, a sampling of everything, and I'm very cautious. Somebody tells me, "Hey, I want you to go check this out. I think there's a demon in there." I'll just say to them, "I'll take your word for it. I don't want to go in there." Yeah,
I know what they can do.
I'm actually usually the one that runs in first to.
You're a brave man.
Well, actually, there's been a lot of cases like John Zaffis and stuff like that. My team actually had to call him in, but a lot of times I would be called in ahead of Catholic priests to get rid of. I call them dark entities rather than demons, but
Yeah.
I got my own way of seeing things because I'm Wiccan. But I also coined the term the Santa Claus effect to describe spirits and everything like that, because as we're younger and being able to see them is when we're younger, our minds are not corrupted by the everyday world. And we're allowed to see that other dimension, that other realm, if you will. And then as we get older, like Santa Claus, we're told that he's not real or it's just our imagination and stuff like that.
Sure.
Same with the spirit world. It's just our imagination. It's not real. It's a lot of us lose that ability to see that side of the different realm, spirit world, if you will.
No, I totally agree. That is what happens. And, luckily, my mom taught me that it was real because we practiced, telepathy, and she, was into all that stuff. But she also taught me to be careful who you talk to about it. So at school, she said, because I tried, I told my teachers early, like first grade or something that, oh, yeah, I have two imaginary playmates, but they are real. Other people don't see them, but they are real. And I got kind of in trouble. And then I told my mom, she said, I know they're real and they're real, but you don't say it because it won't work out too well for you. And so she taught me to be careful. And you're right. A lot of kids who probably would have had the same experiences probably didn't have somebody to kind of coach them along and say, no, it's cool. It's okay. So I was very lucky, that my mom had that attitude. If it was like just my dad, I wouldn't be talking to you probably.
Yeah. Because I actually had, my mom was able to see spirits, so she kind of ingrained that into me. Don't be afraid of it. And that's why I'm actually able to go in and clear out the darker entities, because I go in with that light and no fear, because they hate that light, they hate that fear, or the no fear.
Right. No, you're right, and you're equipped to do it. You know how to do it, and you have experience and the inclination and the skill. I just don't have the inclination to do. I do other things, but I just don't. I try to steer clear of that. But I've run into it by accident. Probably the worst experience was in Chicago in early 2019. I was on one of the late night talk shows, and a film producer called me up and said, "Hey, I'd like to test you, can you come to Chicago, and I'm going to take you to some paranormal sites, and I'm going to film you and just see see how you can do. So I'm not going to tell you what happened there, but see if you can identify it, I'll film you." And I said, okay. I took the challenge. I was like, oh, I'm going to show this guy what I can do, So I got a little bit of too much pride going. So I said, yeah. And I negotiated. I said, okay, I'll go, but you got to. My wife gets to go too, Ginger, my wife. He goes, oh, okay, all right. And he put us up in a hotel and stuff, and took me to some places, interesting places. And I wasn't doing that. I was doing okay, but not real well. It wasn't one of my strongest days or whatever. And then he took me to this one place, the south side of Chicago, and all he told me is something very dark happened here. That was it. That was the only clue I got. Well, I didn't know what had gone on there. So I do what I usually do with minus one thing. I put up my radar dish, as I call it, and I opened up, and I did not do any kind of prayers of protection or anything. I just wanted to show this guy, man, I know I can do this stuff. And it was very powerful. As soon as I got out of the car, I was looking in this alleyway, and I saw, like I was watching a film from the 1890s. You know, there's people and horses and buggies, and they're all dressed in dark clothing, and everybody's moving, but they're all ignoring me, right? Except for this one guy who's standing about 20 yards in front of me, and he's wearing a bowler hat. He's got one of those big curly mustaches, very dark eyes, intense, and wearing a long coat. Mm-hmm. And he was just staring at me like, and I thought, man, this guy's pretty creepy. And then it just poof, it went away. So I said, I got to reconnect. So I walked into the alleyway. I went up to an old tree that had been there, old tree. So I went to touch it, because oftentimes I like to touch things, see if I can pick up on anything. Oh, yeah. And so I was about to touch it, and next thing you know, I'm physically driven into the ground by incredible force. I mean, there was nobody there. There was no person there, but I was driven into the ground, and I was rendered helpless almost. I felt like I couldn't get up. I was losing my will power. It was just terrible. It was like this incredible, dark energy, I guess we can call it, or force. Yeah. Well, and I saw like people under the ground in like a dungeon, and they were reaching up at me in agony and crying and screaming. And finally I mustered the willpower, and I got up, although I was injured. My left leg and my foot were injured. But I got up, and the guy came running out of the car, and he wasn't filming. He just had me mic'd up, so he heard what I was describing. He said, "What happened?" And I told him, and he said, "Yeah, I heard that, but," he said, "I don't feel good." And I said, "I don't feel good either." I said, "You got to take me out of here. I don't want to be here." And so we got in the car and started to drive away. And I said, "Don't ever take me to a place like this without giving me more of a warning." Yeah. I was mad at him, but really I had to be mad at myself, because I didn't do my normal.
Yeah, you didn't. Protect yourself. You didn't pick up on it. Now, to give you an idea of how I've picked up on things, I'm sure living out in Southern California, you've heard of the Omen House.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually good friends with David, and my team used to do help with the ghost tours, but before he ever started doing ghost tours, my team went out there, I think it was in 2014, and I knew nothing of the location other than the murders happened down the drive. That's all I wanted to know, because being a psychic medium, that's all I wanted to know. I wanted to use my abilities to come up with what I saw, what I heard, and everything like that. And I'm driving from Riverside with my friend was driving. I was riding shotgun from Riverside out to Beverly Hills. And we're in Pomona, and I'm looking up the street view on Google Maps or Google Earth just to kind of get an idea of how to get there and everything like that. I wanted to make sure we didn't make any wrong turns before we got there. And we're on the freeway doing about 8 miles per hour in Pomona. And I'm looking at David Omen's house, and I zoomed in. I pointed at a spot on the phone right next to David Omen's house, said, right there, there's a portal to the spirit world, right there. Trying to show my friend as he's driving quickly down the freeway. He's like, tell me about it and show me when we get there. But the point that I'm getting to is the spot that I pointed out on the map that far away from the house. When we got there, I explained to David, he goes, explain to David what you told me on the freeway. And I explained, I pointed out the spot when we got there, exactly where I saw it. And David goes, that is freaky, because when the house was being built, the workers had a 5-gallon bucket of water full, tip uphill, which is impossible. In the same exact spot that I pointed out. And I knew this in advance, of course. There's one spirit that we had another psychic that had been friends with him a lot longer. And she wanted to test me to see how I would do. And I was on the second level, and I saw this spirit pacing back and forth, kind of leaning in, looking at me. and going, "You can see me." Not really actually saying that, but I got that feeling, "You can actually see me," and then it paced back and forth, doing that a couple of times, and she goes, "What did you see?" I explained it, and she goes, "You're absolutely right." But I just I've always had that ability since the age of 5 when I first saw my first little boy spirit playing with a ball on top of my parents' refrigerator. So,
yeah, well, to just finish the Chicago thing. So as we were driving away, I could never take me to this kind of a place again. And then I said, "What happened there?" And he said, "Well, you kind of picked up on it. It was this was the site of the murder hotel. Dr. H.H. Holmes murdered probably about 300 people in this location. Of course, the hotel was torn down, but he built it in the 1890s for the Chicago World's Fair. And so I was seeing the people that were killed and tortured, and in those torture rooms that he had, and it was him. And I the person I saw staring at me with that mustache. So when I got to a computer, I looked it up, and there was his picture was the first thing that came up, and I go, "Oh my God, that's the guy I saw." But I because I didn't protect myself and got physically injured, I had some residual effects from that. So that was probably the worst experience. I've had other kind of darker energy experiences, but that was the worst. And I can really blame it more on me than than the producer, because he was just trying to get some good
he was
shots or whatever.
He didn't have the same ability that you did, or at least not open to it.
Yeah, exactly. And I should have protected me. If I protected myself, probably would have been okay. But if I knew that, I probably would have wanted to have at least one other psychic medium there with me. That would have been, backup. That would have been good. But anyway, it can get pretty hairy out there. And so I always tell people, just be careful, and like you were talking about, learning how to. I think learning how to try to turn it off is very important if somebody's thinking about doing this, and turning it on is going to be easier than turning it off. And turning it off is really important.
A lot of people don't know how to, if they use the Ouija board. I tell people the board is not bad itself, it's the intent that's put into it. But if you open that door, and a lot of people know how to open the door, they just don't know how to close it.
Yeah. And they get attachments and all kinds of stuff going on.
Just the same way of shutting on and shutting off communications with the spirits. It's a tool, if you will, and you got to learn to kind of shut it on and off.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Real quick before we go into commercial break, what all do you teach at Citrus College in California?
Well, my regular gig is that I teach U.S. history and both early American, modern American, and also the Vietnam War. I also used to teach World War II, but I don't do that anymore. So U.S. history, and specializing in foreign policy and America's wars. That's kind of my specialty. And then I started a paranormal history class too, but I haven't taught it.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask, because I saw that paranormal personal history class, but I was going to ask you if that was something that you had taught yet or anything like that.
Yeah, I taught it for a couple of years, but then it got shut down by the pandemic because none of my students wanted to take it online. They wanted to obviously be in person and much better. So I'm gonna try to revive it next fall. See how that works out.
All right, so we're gonna take a real quick commercial break. We'll be back with my guest Bruce Olaos as we get into his book Anzar the Progenitor and other stuff. We'll be right back after the short commercial break.
It used to seem so clear, laid out in black and white. cause to ever fear. No need for compromise. The questions on my mind, the things I couldn't say. It used to feel so real inside this desperate heart, a joy no one could steal, a strong and steady start. The questions on my mind, the things.
Do you have a talk radio, Facebook Live, or YouTube show and would like guests for your show but don't know where to go to get them? Well, go to radioguestlist.com and sign up today. They have all different experts in different fields, and you can find the ones that are just right for your show. That's radioguestlist.com. Sign up today. It's free.
To advertise on Talk in the Night, send an email to talkinthe.night@outlook.com. Talk in the Night has plans to fit your budget. Get your product or business heard around the world by the Talk in the Night listening audience. Plans include 30-second spots and banner ads on the show's website and mentioned on the social media sites. So get your product or business heard around the world today. Shop the Talk in the Night merch store today and pick up one of the many products with 9 different designs to choose from. The store has men's and women's apparel, drinkware, houseware, and accessories. Pick up a t-shirt, coffee mug, or anything else on there and support the show today. Go to talkinthe.night.com to find a link to the merch store. And now, back to Talk in the Night with your host, Paranormal Phil. Okay, and we are back with my guest, Bruce Olaos. As we get into this second portion of the show about his book. But first, before we get into that, I want to ask you, your bio mentions you're an associate member of the Parapsychology Associate as well as members of Cyril and MUFON. Now, a lot of people know what MUFON is, but what is Cyril for those that have never heard it?
Yeah, sure. It's the Close Encounter Resource Organization, and it's founded by Yvonne Smith, who's been doing regressions, hypnotic regressions for contactees and abductees for the past 30 years. She's based here in Southern California, and that's the organization. It's an international organization because there's also members, there's a lot of members in France, for instance. There's a lot of interest there, which makes sense, I guess, Jacques Vallée and everything. Yeah. But so that's that organization. It's a great organization. Of course, Yvonne Smith, she knows her stuff. She's been doing these hypnotic regressions, like I said, for 30 years. I'm not sure how many clients she's had, but many, many, many over the years. And she was taught by Bud Hopkins, and she knew John Mack. She knew all those kind of the pioneer people in, using hypnotic regression.
Okay.
So she's been involved with that. And she goes to all the conferences and all that. And she's just a very down to earth, even though it's a very doesn't seem like a down-to-earth profession. She is a very down-to-earth person.
Yeah, because I know with like Move On and stuff like that, there's quite a bit of just like the paranormal field, there's a lot of infighting and everything. People think they're better than the other, and it's like we're all trying to work for the same goal, basically.
Yes. Yeah, it can get kind of nasty sometimes. And what it is, just like with mediumship and psychic mediumship, there are some charlatans out there, and there are a few of them, and it seems like they always get a lot of notoriety because they're very clever. And then it makes everybody else look bad, to average Joe Blow. He said, "Oh, they're all like that. They're all a bunch of frauds." Yeah, well, which a lot of people. It's very unfortunate. It's so unfortunate because, but there's when you go to these like UFO conferences and stuff, there's a lot of kind of off the wall kind of stuff, and then there's a lot of really interesting stuff. So you just have to separate the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah, like with psychic mediumship, a lot of people kind of look at the whole, if you will, what TV would portray them as, that they're all right and or they're all fake or whatever. And what I tell people is no psychic is ever going to be 100% right, because if we were, we would be winning the lotto every single time.
Exactly. Yeah. But I wouldn't be renting a house. I would own a castle or something.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just a matter of what message the spirit gives to us, or what these ancient aliens messages would give us, and everything like that. So let's get into your book. Anzar. So tell us a little bit about what it's about.
Yeah, so the book is, the first part of the book is kind of my academic side coming through, the professorial side. So I do, it's a lot of research is heavily footnoted, like 300 some footnotes, just of how I think this works. I mentioned it earlier, how the spirit world and the alien world and the quantum world are all really the same thing. So I kind of develop that case and bring up points and counterpoints and arguments, and then I talk about the validity of hypnotic regression and how people have attacked the people who do it and the people who have it done. So I do that, and then I go into I introduce who this Anzar is, but then after I lay the kind of the theoretical framework, then I go into the my spirit walks and my communication with Anzar for the last 3 years. So I go on these spirit walks pretty often, and I make a connection to him, and then I record everything that I hear. I have a little phone with a voice recorder, and whatever he tells me, or whatever other spirit I'm contacting, I'll say what they're saying, and I'll record it on the phone, and then my questions and so forth. And then I come home and I transcribe it. So I have about 300 pages, I guess, of notes, and it's continuing because I still do these spirit walks.
Okay, so this is actually a ancient alien mystic in that realm of or plane of existence, if you will.
Yeah, he communicates with me, and we have kind of a long history, and it goes back to 1964, which is the first I can remember having contact with this character. I didn't know his name then. I just knew that that he intervened, and I thought he was a monster, because as a 6-year-old kid in 1964, I thought, he was really tall, and he had an upside down teardrop shaped head and big slanted eyes. I thought, man, you're a monster. Yeah. But he told me no, he wasn't. But he told me that the guy that lives in the house above our house was a monster. And as it turned out, that guy was a child molester. Ooh, wow. And so he helped me, avoid that house. And it was corroborated later. My brother told me that guy had been arrested as a child molester. So I was very lucky.
Wow,
so I think he intervened in my life at that point. And I knew that he was around. And then there were other instances where he was kind of watching over me, if you will. But it wasn't until 1997 that I had another really powerful vision with him, and that's when he told me he was the progenitor. Meaning that he was the first or the one that started everything. The progenitor, and he communicated with me, and it was so clear. I mean, I just saw him. And he was kind of had this proto-human look, and he had these long robes, and he was rotating in space, and telling me all these things about how the dimensions are connected. That black holes and the other dimension come out as a quasar, and how everything is connected in the quantum world, and all that. How everything is connected. And then he told me that I was a seer, that I would be a seer. That's what the term he used.
Okay.
And so I wrote all this down. I drew the picture of him, and I kind of hid it, like we were talking about before. We kind of have to hide this from a lot of people, or at least I did. And then in 2001, I decided, okay, I'm going to tell one of my colleagues at the college, and she was an anthropologist, and I figured, she'd studied ancient religions and stuff. So I figured, okay, she'd be hip to this. She'll understand. And I told her, and I showed her the picture, and she looked at me and said, "You're a pretty spacey dude, aren't you?" And I said, "Okay, forget it. I'm just kidding." And I just put it away. And then it didn't come out until 2016 when Gene came to me in that vision. And after that, Gene helped me, and I started doing these spirit walks, and that's when I reconnected to the progenitor. And I asked him, I said, "Do you have another name other than the progenitor? It's kind of formal." And he said, "Yeah, Anzar," and which is kind of an interesting name because it means it's the god of rain or water in North Africa, and it has in Iran, in the ancient Persian Empire. In fact, there's a town in northern Iran called Anzar. And there's even an Anzar high school up in Central California, which is kind of interesting, tied into one of the guys who set up most of the missions on the California coast. So he was from the Basque region of Spain. So there's that weird connection between the Basques and a lot of paranormal stuff, because they're the population with the highest percentage of Rh negative blood in the world. The Rh negatives, they have like 30% of their people in the Basque region are Rh negative, which is very unusual because it's only about, I think, 10% of the population who have Rh negative blood.
Yeah, it's a rare blood type, so
which I have, and my mom did, of course, so I started connecting with him on a regular basis, and he's been giving me information, oftentimes prophetic things. Like a year before COVID, he told me there was going to be a series of calamities that would strike, not just in the United States, but in the world. Now, he didn't tell me there would be something called COVID-19, but he just said, be prepared. And I asked him for more specific information. Why can't you just tell me, give me the prediction of what's going to happen, and then I can share it with people. And he said, because there's a lot of variables and a lot of things, and you guys have free will. So, these are generally possible things that could happen. And then he told me that predictions can be wrong, but preparations are never wrong. So I take his advice. I do the preparations, and he's been pretty accurate about what's been going on.
Yeah,
and I share that with the Ciro group. I tried sharing it on Facebook. Some of what he was saying, like when a COVID, we first heard about it. I warned everybody. I said, I'm on these spirit walks, and I just shared it very openly on Facebook. And I said that millions of people are going to die. This is very serious. And I was attacked. Philip, you can't believe it, how I was attacked. and said I was a sensationalist. And these are like people I work with, some of them, and then just random people on Facebook, attacking me. So I said, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'll just, within a smaller group, and then write it in this book. Of course, that was the idea.
Now, so this was before.
So yeah, that's who I've been in contact with, and I asked him, do I call you an alien? Do I call you an extraterrestrial? Do I call you Anzar the progenitor? The alien mystic? What do you? And he said, how about you call me a long lost relative? Which I think is interesting, because the idea is that we're all related, and that we all have that connection, which is kind of wonderful and strange at the same time. But or as my friend Gene said, he said, we are the aliens. So I thought that's pretty awesome.
Did he have that look of extraterrestrial, or?
Yeah, like he has different ways that he appears. Sometimes he likes to appear as this proto-human. Sometimes he looks like, more of the classic, very tall, with the, like I described, this upside down teardrop shaped head with the big slanted eyes. And sometimes he appears looking like a Native American medicine man, almost like a Kachina doll. The southwest Indian tribes have those Kachina dolls, kind of that look. So he has that, and that look as well. And actually, in our Zero group, we just did a connection with Anzar, because I've just been alone doing this, and it gets kind of isolated. And I feel, even when somebody like yourself who's had all these experiences, or myself, every once in a while I doubt myself. I go, is this really happening? You would think, why would I do that? But I guess it's a natural.
Yeah. Well, every once in a while you got to have a little bit of skepticism, because it's healthy to have that skepticism. I mean, if you're a true skeptic that don't want to believe anything like James Randi, or if you're a true believer that everything is real and nothing can be faked, then you're not open to the possibility that, okay, maybe I was wrong, or maybe I was right.
Yeah. I think it's a natural human inclination to do that, and it's healthy to have that kind of self-check mechanism, like in computers or any kind of mechanical devices, but do a diagnostic every once in a while. But at the Zero group, I told them, hey, we got to have an emergency session, because I want you guys to jump on board this Anzar train, So, and we were able to do it, and we made the connection, and it was awesome. It was, we had a couple of people in our group who are really, really good psychic mediums. One's a shaman and trained in a Native American tradition. So we were able to communicate and piece together a few things, because, I always tell people, I say, I'm listening to him, I'm recording what he says, I write it down, I share it with, a group of people, and in this book. But there's certain things that might get lost in the translation, because there's a lot of information going through, and I'm just a human being. I'm not like a supercomputer or something. So I said, if anything is wrong, it's probably just my misinterpretation. It's probably not his information that's wrong. And
like with me, when I see messages from the spirit, a lot of times there are images, and it's up to me to interpret that image into a message.
Exactly.
Like there was one time we were on a tour at the Oman House. I was leading the tours. I was down there before the seance or after the seance. I can't remember. But I had the people ask me questions, because our regular psychic, she was already busy with other people, so they knew that I had that ability. So I was like, I'll go down there, kind of help her out, because if you know anything, if anybody knows anything about connecting with the spirit world, if you got that ability, they love to bum rush you.
Yeah.
So if you got just one person that has that ability real strong, they're going to bum rush you. So I was like, let me go down there, let me take some of those spirits off of her hand. But anyways, saw this like Red Cross, and I was like, is any of your family in poor health or something like that? Because this is what this family member is showing me, Red Cross, and I'm trying to figure out what this meaning is, because I don't know. They're not telling me, they're just showing me the image and everything like that. And turns out that the one of the family members drove an ambulance. So that came into play with the Red Cross.
Right.
So, but it's all a matter of interpreting the message that the spirits or these ancient mystic aliens or whatever are giving us.
Yeah. It's not always so easy. Some, like you said, sometimes it's images, sometimes like still images or graphic, kind of image. Other times, Anzar likes to show me like old film clips, like historical film clip. Like I say, I'm trying to understand what you're saying. So he'll show me some kind of film clip, and I'll go, "Oh, I get what you're saying."
Yeah, I would love to being here in Fort Worth. I go to the stockyards quite a bit, and I would love for some of the spirits down there to show me something like that, because I'm fascinated with the Old West and Civil War. So.
Oh yeah. Me too. I love that stuff. I mean, I love going to real ghost towns. There's like one called Garnet up in northern Montana. You have to hike to it. It's a real ghost town when you have to hike to it.
Oh yeah.
And it was so cool. And I was with a bunch of people, so I couldn't really do anything. And that was before I really, figured out how to manage it. But man, that place was awesome. I agree.
Yeah, like I said, I just would love to go back in time just for a split second, even just to experience what it was like during that time in the Fort Worth stockyards, Hell's Half Acre.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was I was just watching with my wife Ginger and my mother-in-law the 1883 series.
Oh yeah, I finished that up already. I'm like, really, you can't make more?
Yeah, I know, it's so good. We're only up to episode 7, I think, and they're still in Oklahoma, I think, or whatever. They're never going to get
I won't spoil it for you.
Yeah, don't spoil it for me. But man, if there's 7 episodes in and they're not even out of Oklahoma yet, geez. Well, I guess they have. Isn't it the prequel to Yellowstone, the show Yellowstone?
Yes, it is. No, I will not spoil it, but I will mention there's only 10 episodes.
Oh, okay.
So you're almost finished with it.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, it is really, really good. The music, the acting, I really like, what's his name? Sam. Is it Sam?
Sam Elliott.
Sam Elliott, yeah. He's just... He is awesome, but man, that country singer, he is a good actor.
Oh yeah.
I guess I'd seen him in something before, but I mean, he is really good. He embodies that Wild West kind of character. I mean, he's just really good. But they're all really pretty good actors.
I tried to get a picture of them when they were filming here in the Fort Worth stockyards.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, darn it! And I got there and they weren't filming, or at least at that location. I think they were down in Granbury or something like that. I was like, darn it! Come out here to catch
that would have been
view
cool.
Of them. And nothing.
Yeah. So this connection with Anzar, it's there are it's a lot for a lot. I think it was the late Jim Mars who said that people reach a boggle factor. So they might say, okay, I believe in ghosts, or I believe there might be ghosts, or I believe there might be telepathy or something. But man, aliens, and then you start talking about ancient alien, I don't know. So you get a lot of skepticism. But once you cross that threshold, then there really isn't any, like you said, going back after that. So, but you'll probably reach another one, and then you got to overcome that boggle factor and then go to the next level. And ultimately, as Anzar always tells me, he says, what we're going through right now is a leap of consciousness. as human beings. And he said some people are along for the ride, and some people are resisting. But he said you're going to have to go through this leap of consciousness to get to what he calls the era of reconversion, which is where we take our modern science and technology and what we've learned and combine it with what we've forgotten that the ancient people knew, their connection to the universe and to the star people, as the Native Americans called them, and all the spirits, the spirit world and all that, and combining the two, not being mutually exclusive, but combining that knowledge. And he said at that point, things will be a lot better. But he said, you got a ways to go, and it's going to be pretty rough until you get there.
Yeah, as I mentioned at the start of the show, talking about the President Obama Presidential Library, having those over 26,000 files on declassified UFO stuff like that. I mean, what are they not, or what are they still hiding from us, basically?
Well, that sure. You're right, and that's the main thing is, and this is true for all governments that are hanging on to the knowledge they have. They still think, and I have a friend who's retired FBI, and but it's all those agencies, you're never really out of it, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, he said basically they're trying to figure out how to strap a bomb to it, and they're afraid to, that somebody else will figure it out first, the Russians or the Chinese or somebody. So, and then Anzar tells me they're wasting their time because you can't use our technology to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that they have that technology. They are not the extraterrestrial, but our government and other governments. But they have that technology, but they're using it for their own selfish purposes, like war and everything like that, to line their coffers. And
it's it's a shame that it's like that, and that's they got a lot of people on the hook because they give them these little tidbits, these little breadcrumbs, right, and leading them into dead ends and keep talking about disclosure and all that, and what I've found out is that, and what Anzar's told me, is that it's not disclosure, it's revelation. That it's this leap of consciousness where it's revealed to you as you take this leap of consciousness, and that you just can't sit there passively and wait for the government to tell you what the truth is.
Yeah.
You have to actively seek it and live it, take that leap.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people are doing, is waiting for these little breadcrumbs, as you said, just to come out to find out. But I mean, I've gotten away from anything political since 2008. I don't really trust the government or anything like that, and I was part of the government, but but anyways, I know that they're not going to ever give us that information because it would open possibilities to possibly better energy, better food source, better all kinds of things.
Yeah. And that's, I think that I always feel like, and what I've been told is that, once you're ready to take the next step, then they'll kind of help with that. Anzar calls it nudges. Every once in a while, they give you a nudge in the right direction. And it all comes down to really, free will. This idea of, because somebody asked me, why don't you just ask Anzar, what if they can do all this stuff and they know all this, so why don't they just help us and just do away with the diseases and the war and the killing and intervene right now and just do all this stuff? And I was told that then you'll become totally dependent and you won't be independent. You'll lose your free will if we do everything for you.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like with your children. It's the same kind of thing. You you do stuff for them, but at a certain point, you got to let them venture away a little bit, and then bring them back and teach them, and then they try it out and fail, and they come back, and you help them, and you get back on their feet, and they just, gradually they become independent.
Yeah,
like
my parents always told me, if you want anything, you go out there and earn it.
Yeah, you got to do it yourself. That's how
I
means
learn
something.
is by doing something, and a lot of people just want things handed to them. Basically, I hate to say it.
Yeah, I don't want to put in the effort. Just tell me what I need to know.
Yeah,
that's a kind of a lazy approach, and that's not real. Then you're not. It's not in your soul, or it's not in your psyche. Not in who you are. You don't understand it from every level, and that's what it needs to be.
Okay, so we're going to take our commercial break here at the top of the hour. When we come back, we'll have open lines where you can call in and ask Bruce anything if you wish. If not, we'll continue talking about his book, Anzar the Progenitor. We'll be right back after the short commercial break.
All you gotta do is set me free, oh yeah. Look up the skies, all the stars above you, all the stars are saying do, set me free, come on little girl. All you gotta do is set me free, oh yeah.
The weather is getting warmer and people are out and about. Well, if you love ghost hunting, now is the time to pick up some new gear. GhostStop.com has a wide variety of equipment to choose from, and one of those items is Blue Buddy. He's back. The talking bear every investigator wants on their team. Click on the Ghost Stop banner ad at the top of the show's website and pick up your Blue Buddy today. Go to spring.com and sign up to create your own design or choose from a design from one of the many creators on there. Spring has ways to integrate your store on social media, custom stores, and they have digital and physical products. While you're there, check out the Talk in the Night merch store. To get started with Spring today, click on the banner ad on the Talk in the Night website. Go to the show's website and click on the links for each of my guests and purchase a book or other product that they may be promoting. Without them, there would be no Talk in the Night. Whether you're interested in the paranormal, conspiracy, technology, health, relationships, or any other topic the show covers, my guests have something for you. Check it out today on talkingthenight.com.
Ready to sail into the wind, heading west to find my reason, longing for something greater than this, and I'm right with anticipation. Yeah, I have a good feeling, staring at the starry ceiling, a dream in my heart. Yeah, this is just the start. My suitcase is packed.
Call into the show, Skype Talk in the Night, or by phone at 817-717-1280. Now back to Talk in the Night with your host, Paranormal Bill. Okay, and we are back with my guest, Bruce Olaos. So we're going to have the phone lines open if you want to call in and ask him a question. Also on Spreaker.com, there is a chat if you do not want to call in and you just want to ask a question on the chat. Just type the question in the chat. I'll ask him myself, but until we get any calls or anything like that, because I'm just restarting back the show again, so it's going to take a while to really build that audience back up to what it was prior 2018, last time I was on the air. So
okay. Yeah.
But
no, that's cool.
Now, see, like at the beginning, or we talked about you being on the air with George Norrie and George Knapp and everything like that. And of course, my inspiration to get into radio like I'm doing now and talk radio and talking about this stuff was from Art Bell.
Oh yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, he inspired me to. I mean, I would listen to Coast to Coast AM, Midnight in the Desert, everything like that. Just to hear this strange and unusual stuff. I mean, when I was 15 years old, my parents would go up to Calgary, Alberta for the Stampede, and driving across country an RV. Most kids would want a toy going across country or something like that. Me, I wanted a book on Bigfoot. I always found that interesting, this kind of topic interesting and everything like that. So he inspired me to get into radio, so that's what I'm doing with my show. But anyways, let's get back into the book. Now, a lot of people, when they have alien experiences or they think aliens, they think of different races like the Anunnaki, reptilians, the Greys. Did Anzar mention anything about those different extraterrestrial races, or is he saying like they're more of all the same?
No, he's talked about different ones. He's always said there are those that are helping you, being the humans, and there are those that are not so helpful, and then there are some that are kind of neutral. But the reptilians tend to be the ones that are the kindest way to describe it is that they're really rough, And I can tell you one experience I had with a reptilian female. In fact, she's on the cover of my third paranormal book, Timeless Trinity. Okay. And it was from an experience I had. I was having a very nice dream about my mother, and it was very nice. And my mother passed away in 1990, so she's been gone a long time. So it was a very nice dream. And then all of a sudden, my mother started to act very weird and inappropriately. She was never liked. She was a really nice lady, a good lady. And I thought, there's something wrong. I don't think this is my mother. And all of a sudden, the dream just becomes this very lucid dream where now my mother morphs into this reptilian female. And she's very strong. I mean, she picks me up and slams me against the wall and gets right up to my face and just says, I can do whatever I want to you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Wow. And I thought, oh my God, I'm a big guy. I'm like 6'3", 269, I'm big. And she just lifted me like I was a feather. But the weird thing was that it was frightening and kind of alluring at the same time. Because she, the look she had, and I've heard, Yvonne has talked about it with all the experiencers she's talked to. They have kind of the same feeling that they get when they deal with these reptilians. So yeah, Anzar has talked about different groups and with different motivations. Once I said, well, do you all want the same thing? And then he told me, he showed me a little, like a film reel of people coming to the Americas, and the lesson was, what was the motivation of the people that came to the New World from the Old World? And he was right. Some of them wanted to help us. Some of them were conquistadors. They just wanted to conquer and take advantage and whatever. And some were, like missionaries or mystics, and some were merchants. And there was a lot of different motivations
of people and different ideologies.
Yeah, and different ways they look at us. Some have respect for us and want to help us, and others, don't and want other things. And they form allegiances with groups of humans who are kind of like-minded. So that causes problems here on Earth. So yeah, he's gone over that and I find it just absolutely fascinating because I listen to other people who've had experiences, and they're not all the same, and they don't necessarily agree to the letter, but in general, it kind of starts to fill out the roster. You kind of figure out, okay,
Yeah.
I see what's going on here, and and so and like you were saying, and I was saying, these experiences, they're very individual experiences, but when you look at it as a group, as collectively, you start to see connections, and you can understand that people are having contact with different groups, and I think it like I said, it's been a fascinating 6 years that have gone by very quickly since Gene told me not to be afraid and tell my story. So nothing bad has happened to me except for that experience in Chicago. I didn't lose my job like I thought I was going to. I didn't lose my friends. I had the friends that I've lost have been people who misinterpreted what I wrote on Facebook, thinking that it was political, and I said, no, it's not political. I'm just telling you what I'm being told.
Well,
And people go kind of crazy, like you were talking about. You don't want to get political because people go off the rails, in either direction. They just go a little nutsy.
Yeah,
So,
well, with that thing, like I said, a lot of people just don't want to hear both sides. I mean, the left doesn't want to hear the right doesn't want to hear the left.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I said, I got sick of all of that a long time ago. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
I
tried to get us to come together, tried to open people's mind. I mean, I might not agree with somebody else, but to have that conversation, to open people's mind, be like, okay, like this could be right. I never thought of that way.
yeah.
I mean, I had a guest on a few years back, probably about 5 years ago on my show.
Mm-hmm.
It was a guest talking about the JFK assassination, and he had a book, The Magic Bullet. And I would bring up like what if questions. And he was so stuck on his version, what he was told, what he heard, or what he believed, that he wasn't open to hearing other possibilities. Like I mentioned, there used to be a catwalk or a fire escape on the side of the building across from the book depository. And it's in photos from that time era. And I was like, could there have been a gunman standing there because everybody was watching him come from I think it was Elm, I can't remember, but and
Houston
making that right
Elm,
turn.
Yeah.
And that building's on the opposite side, so everybody's looking that way to him going down towards the grassy knoll and not looking back above them or off to the side.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's it. And I, of course, living there, I went there the first time that I moved here to Texas, and I was like, that would actually be a pretty straight shot from there.
Yeah.
And I was like, could that have happened?
Yeah. And he just didn't want to entertain that thought, huh?
Yeah. But it's the same way with the spirit world, same with extraterrestrial. I mean, people are just not open to the possibility, could this have happened, or could this happen, or rather than be open to discussion, they just are closed-minded to what their beliefs is.
Yeah, they're afraid that they might not have all the information, so they're just going to stick to what they think they know for sure. I'm trying to think of that quote by Mark Twain. It's not what you know for sure that'll get you in trouble. No, it's not what you know that'll get you in trouble. It's what. Oh man, now I can't remember it. I'll try to remember. There's a really great quote about that Mark Twain had. about
can't think of it
thinking that
either.
you know everything. It's usually doesn't work out too well.
Yeah. Never does. So,
Yeah.
does he have really, or does he and the other entities or extraterrestrials have really a message for us?
Yeah. This idea that we need to undergo this leap of consciousness, and we have to do that to survive, and then ultimately combine with what ancient people knew and the modern science, and then we can have a new age that'll be much better than what we've been suffering through. But getting to that point is the hard part.
Yeah.
And and realizing, I'm not a scientist, I'm a historian, but
Yeah.
I love to, I've read everything I can get my hands on that I could understand on quantum physics, and I just kind of arrived at this idea that the quantum world, the subatomic world, spirit world, and the alien world are the same, and I keep asking Anzar about that. I've asked my friend Gene, and when you think about it, the idea that that ghosts can appear out of nowhere and can go through solid objects, vibrate in and out of our reality, this subjective reality that we're experiencing right now. They and aliens do the same thing, and that's just not coincidental. I mean, they can do that, and they can actually transport you through that solid object and or apparently solid object. It's just the way what we think it is. And
yeah, it's I've heard people talk about light, and I don't know how much of this could be possibly true, but people I've seen talk about we live in kind of a simulation, and I'm wondering if that is possibly the case.
Yeah, well, the idea that consciousness is primary and we create our realities, that and is there a simulation that we're all sharing in the kind of like the Matrix, where we this is we think it's our reality, but it's actually not the objective reality. And I think it was David Bohm, the physicist, who came up with 3 different levels. He said there's the it's basically the subjective reality that we have, but he called it the explicate order. And then there is the implicate order, which is the realm of quantum physics and the alien world and the spirit world. And then there's the super implicate order, which is the mind of the one, the one consciousness or God or whatever you want to, call it, whatever people feel comfortable calling it. And that every once in a while in the subjective reality, we see, like you could say, a glitch in the Matrix, and you go, oh, I just saw something from the objective reality, and I had a computer scientist I was listening to explain it this way. He said that basically what we have is kind of an interface to what objective reality is, kind of like a computer where, we don't actually see or see the voltages being toggled on and off that, in the binary system, it's our computer. We have an interface. We have a keyboard or a voice activated thing or something. We have some kind of interface to it, but we don't see the inner workings. And you kind of explain that's the connection between the explicate order and the implicate order. And I thought, wow, that's kind of a cool way to look at it, that we have to have this more simple version in order for us to experience and feel comfortable or semi-comfortable with the reality that we experience. But when you have experiences like you've had your whole life, or I've had, or a lot of other people have had, you realize there's more than what meets the eye.
And of course, I mean, like I said, I've had the ability to see and communicate with spirits since I was 4 years old or 5 years old. But there's still a lot that I don't know, and I don't think we'll ever know all that. And I'm wondering, does Anzar mention anything to where we'll get a little more knowledge into the inner workings of their lifestyle and everything like that.
Yeah, he says that but it has to. He always uses the word nudges. I give you nudges, and he gives me nudges too. And you can only take in so much at a time because it's kind of mind blowing, as you know.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you kind of a funny story. I this was a couple of years ago, and I thought, man, I'm doing pretty good. I'm communicating with him. I'm writing these books. It's all going pretty well. So I was feeling pretty good about myself. So I went outside like I do every night, look up at the stars, and specifically at the constellation of Orion, which I've always been attracted to since I was a little kid.
Now, in Southern California, it's kind of hard to see the night sky out there with the light pollution.
Yeah, it can be difficult, and I and that's the connection to Anzar too, because he said that he always says his origin was the Rigel system in the constellation of Orion. So I've been attracted to Orion since I was a little kid, but. Anyway, I was looking at the night sky, and I just said to myself, I was feeling very confident in myself. I said, I think I'm starting to understand what's going on here, and was very happy. And then I heard this voice, and it was Anzar's voice, and he said, "Oh, you have no idea."
Wow.
So he can be very funny too, which I appreciate. He can be kind of, using the word nudges, which I think it kind of made me laugh.
Yeah,
and then to kind of poke fun at me, thinking now I understand. But
now to kind of play devil's advocate, if you will.
Yeah.
Like I said, I like to throw guests off their game a little bit.
Take me out of my comfort zone,
yeah,
Philip.
Basically, and that's what makes a great host. But what is the chance that possibly the Anzar is one of these possible demon creatures, but showing you because there's people that believe that something like this might be a demon just showing you a different side just to drag you in. Yeah,
no, and I've been asked that before, and one of the things that Anzar reminds me of every time we are in contact is he says it's absolutely essential for you to keep love in your heart and always operate from a position of love. And that sounds, a lot of people might say something like that, and it sounds kind of almost, cliche or whatever.
Yeah.
But when you actually try to practice it, it's very difficult, because you were talking about politics and how people get so angry at each other. And, and if you can just, keep love in your heart and realize people are going to disagree and just try to operate that way, it just makes everything so much easier in your life.
And I try to do that, but a lot of times I do get a little bit angry and stuff like that, and I try not to, but we're all human, so I mean, there's no way to get around it.
And it's natural, especially people like ourselves who've had military experience, they kind of feed off of that kind of aggressive anger, kind of thing. And just growing up in the age that I grew up, I was born in 1958, so everything was aggression. If you're a guy, it's aggression. If you're a woman, it's a different thing. I know today it's different, and people look at things differently, but still, that's kind of how I grew up with it. And so that, doing that is very, very, it's a lot harder than it sounds. And it sounds nice, but actually putting it in practice is difficult. But anyway, the point is, if he was some kind of dark energy or demonic force, he wouldn't be telling me to keep love in my heart and always operate from a position of love.
True.
That'd be the last thing they'd want to say. And I'll go you one better with this. My wife Ginger is she's very supportive of my what I do, and but every once in a while she asks, kind of like just kind of throwing you off a little bit. She said, "Now that's really nice." I tell her what Anzar told me, and she says, "Oh, that's really good." She said, "But now, are you sure you're not out there just talking to yourself?" That's what she said, and it made me laugh because it was so funny, but it was such a basic, good question, Yeah. And I said, no, I mean, I've thought about that. Obviously, you have moments of doubt, but then I said no, because he's given me information that has actually happened, And I don't think so. But I'm glad you asked the question because it made me laugh. And she wasn't trying to be mean or anything. She just, are you sure?
Me, I know. Like I said, when I started in the field, it's not widely popular as it is nowadays. I got started back when Ed and Lorraine Warren were in the field, and it's just evolved. You didn't really talk to anybody, so if people saw you talking to yourself or something like that, it had to be somebody that knew that you were in that field or you had that ability. Otherwise, people looked at you strange, and there are people that still do it to this day. But I think, does Anzar mention anything about more people opening to that nowadays with all this information technology that's out there?
Yeah, he publishing these books, and that's part of the mission, and being prepared to help people who are making the leap or trying to make the leap. That I have a lot of people that contact me because I've been on these other shows and just the books they've read, and so I've helped them as best I can. So that's kind of my mission, just like your mission is doing this show.
Because I'm out here to just give other people different perspectives. Like I got tonight is talking about aliens and everything like that, and the spirit realm and everything like that. Whereas tomorrow I'm talking to a shaman. So cool. And then I'll have on in the future like people talking about health topics or technology. But I'm out here giving that information to have people make up their own mind.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I approach teaching too, because teaching is kind of a sacred, job, because, these young minds can be influenced very negatively. If you're a person with ill intent, let's say, try to indoctrinate people and so forth. And I always just kind of guide them into their own, whatever, wherever they're going to go. I give them the tools of a historian to ask the questions and ask the right questions and hopefully get answers or better questions.
Oh yeah,
and kind of just even-handedly, approach them. So I'm not indoctrinating them. I'm helping them to think critically, and that's really the best way to do it. Otherwise, you're indoctrinating, and that's not what I want to do.
Yeah, a lot of people think nowadays, and I've heard it plenty of times because I listen to all kinds of things. Just I'm surprised the amount of knowledge that's in my head. Don't forget things. But anyways, I'll listen to different points and different topics and everything like that just to get an idea and learn about it, because if I'm not learning, then I'm not growing.
Exactly. And that there was a quote about teaching that the best way to learn is to try to teach somebody. That you really it takes a lot of responsibility and preparation and kindness, really. I mean, you have to have that to be an effective teacher and want to learn. I never stop learning. I always want to learn. I learn from my students and the questions they ask, and it's just, it's been going on for 30 years, but I still learn stuff every time I teach.
See, I'm almost 50, and I learned all this new technology stuff just by doing it. But I got a friend that's in her mid to late 30s and doesn't really know too much about the technology. And I was like, the best way to learn anything is trial and error. Get out there, do it. And because I've learned how to do. Like I said, I'm not only the host, but I'm the booking agent, the producer, and I learned all this by doing it a little bit at a time, just trial and error. And I was wondering, does Anzar have a way for us to learn from that trial and error, or a message about learning from that trial and error?
Let me think what he would, he's talked about. He says that Well, this idea, coming back to free will, because it really is a discussion about free will. Are we directed and are we just acting out what's already been laid out, or do we actually have free will? And it's really kind of a combination of both. And trial and error is part of that learning process where you have free will to make mistakes. But I think it's often been said you often learn more from mistakes than successes. Oftentimes they're painful lessons, but you learn. Oh man, I'm not going to do that again. That's for sure.
Trust me, I know. I've done a lot of stupid things as when I was younger, and now I'm paying for it.
Yeah, me too. And I think that's part of that.
But I wouldn't go back and do it different because it was something that I learned from, and now I got that experience.
Yeah, exactly. That you wouldn't be who you are. You wouldn't be doing what you are if you didn't make all those decisions along the way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say just in general, that's what he's been telling me.
Okay, so we're going to get into the last commercial break of the night, but we'll be right back with my guest Bruce as we talked about Anzar, but we're going to get into some of the other stuff that he has going on, and we'll finish up the show and more of your phone calls if you want to call in. Like I said, this Springer chat is open.
Why don't you come and take blue skies? Why don't you come and take me?
Do you need music for your radio show, podcast, or YouTube channel, but need a music license to play it on your show? Well, go to artlist.io and check out the plans they have. They have 3 plans to choose from: personal, unlimited, and enterprise. All the music that you hear on the show is from Artlist, and there is a banner ad on the show's website. Check it out today. Do you love the strange, unusual, and weird unexplained mysteries? Do you like reading about the paranormal and other happenings? Well, I have the website for you, unexplainedmysteries.com. On there you will find so much such as the latest news and articles, forums, news with video, and so much more. That's unexplained-mysteries.com, or you can click on the banner ad on the show's website to take you right there. Do you love history? Do you wonder what happened on this day in history? Well, check out history.com/this day in history and find out what happened on this day in recorded history. You can also click on the image on the Talk of the Night website under this day in history and check out one of the many things that happened. The show's website lists a different event in history every day, so check it out today.
I'm a prisoner of this hill, searching for a way to get back up again. I'm killing for a thrill, I'm killing for a way back to Elysia. All the lights are dimming thin, the secret's almost out.
To call into the show, Skype Talk in the Night, or by phone at 817-717-1280. Now back to Talk in the Night with your host, Paranormal Phil. Okay, and we are back in the last half hour of the show, and like I said, the phone lines are open if you wish to call. The speaker chat is open if you want to ask a question of my guest, Bruce Olaos. Before we get into the other stuff, I wanted to ask a couple of more things about Anzar.
Sure.
Now, does he mention anything about what our government might be hiding about extraterrestrials and UFOs and their technology?
Yeah, well, he says that they know things, obviously, that they haven't told us, but he said they don't really understand it because they still think that they can weaponize everything, so they don't want to share it,
As you mentioned
So he
earlier.
said that's the big misunderstanding. They don't realize that the only way we're going to survive is that we need to work together. And we seem to be a long ways away from that right now, especially, internally and even in our own country, as we've talked about arguments and stuff, but internationally, kind of the wheels are coming off the wagon with our old foes, the Russians and of course the threat posed by communist China. So, the key is that in this community, I'll just tell you, I'll share what we found when all the members of CIRO in this group that we were in connecting with Anzar. He told us that what is required is what he called a chain of love. And he said that chain of love has to go around the world, around and around and around. And he says that's the only way you're going to get to where you need to be. And I imagine, you being a sailor, familiar with chain, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you probably, had a lot of experiences with it. But anyway, so this idea that, the chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So we have to be strongly bonded together, wrapped around. I just imagine this chain, but it's a chain. The bond is love.
Yeah.
And that's how we're going to get to the next level in our evolution.
Okay. Now, speaking of which, that's why I asked that question, is getting to the last question for Anzar and everything like that, is a lot of people believe before everything was here, we had, of course, Atlantis, and that was like a highly technology driven society of extraterrestrials and star childs and star beings and everything else. Does he mention anything about that?
I've never specifically asked him about Atlantis. I do know, he said that he was the first contact for what would become, human beings. So that's obviously very ancient.
Yeah.
and so that, this idea that, I like to think of the idea of Prometheus, when Prometheus gave man fire, but really it's the fire of knowledge and of self-determination, the Promethean kind of model, versus the Atlas model, which is which is what Atlantis is named after, Atlas. The idea of obedience, So, but there's a fine line, like Plato said, man cannot live. Of course, Plato, if he was updated, he'd say human beings. But anyway, he said, man cannot live without freedom or authority. So there has to be a balance. And of course, that finding that balance is the hard part, because you see examples of too much authority is, not good.
Yeah.
And too much freedom, you don't have any order, it's chaos. And so you need some kind of balance. And so, those are the kind of things that he's told me. Now, he hasn't specifically mentioned Atlantis, although I can ask him. There's so many things to ask him, and I go out there and I draw a blank. It's like, why do I do that?
Like I said,
so I have to write stuff down to remind myself.
Yeah, that's why, like I said, I like to throw the guests off a little curveball here and there,
No, that's good. I would like to ask him about that. I'm
like I said, it opens up the discussion because now you never thought about asking it, but now you like, well, could that actually there be something to it?
Yeah, I think this idea that there's been different ages, and the idea of what was going on here in the Americas, like when I was a kid, and I'm 63, so when I was a kid, we were taught, I remember my teacher saying, okay, Columbus discovered America, and we, a couple of us smart aleck kids, well, what about the Indians?
Yeah.
And they said, just listen to just read the lesson, don't be asking questions, don't ask questions. That was a terrible
don't ask questions, just believe what you're told.
And then I told my mom, and then she said, ask the teacher about Leif Erikson. He was here 500 years before Columbus. So then I asked about Leif Erikson. Then I got in real trouble.
Yeah, ask about the Vikings. They're the ones that actually kind of discovered it, even though the Indians were here. But the Vikings actually discovered North America before Columbus did.
Yeah, they just didn't, leave a big mark, or blaze the trail for all the other conquistadors and everything else, which is what makes Columbus stand out. But anyway, that's where this idea of questioning is so important, and I do like it. I like it when people ask me questions that make me really, really think. Whether it's my students or people that are interviewing me or talking to me or whatever, I really enjoy it, and that's how I learn. And but I think that it's ongoing. I'll talk to Anzar.
I don't think we'll ever know the truth, even once we pass on from this realm, because I believe we go on to another realm and then learn our lesson there, then come back here. But it's all a part of belief, but we don't know what's on that other side. I know I've tried asking the spirits, what's on the other side? They won't tell me.
Yeah. I just, I get glimpses of, through my friend, well, especially through my friend Gene, because we were very good friends, and he just told me some things like little things, like funny things, like I noticed when I had a vision of him, I said, "You're not wearing shoes," and he said, "We don't have to wear shoes anymore," and I never liked wearing them anyway.
Yeah, well, like one of my friends who I was talking about was driving the time that I mentioned about the portal at the Oman house. He brought out the point that the spirit, or he would tell a lot of people on the tours, spirits are not bound by our time and space and everything like that. And I started using it, and I'm like, the spirits, they could go to Pluto if they wanted to. They're not bound by our time and space, and that's why I think, and now thinking about it, mentioned about they can go to Pluto if they want to. Mm-hmm. What's to say that the extraterrestrials can't do that?
Right, exactly. Once you can, have broken the linear concept of time, time travel and all that. That's it. Pretty much opens up everything else. And you mentioned earlier that you're going to have some guests talking about technology, and I was going to ask you. I know I'm the guest, but I'm going to ask you a question.
Sure.
Now, what do you think about this idea of the coming technological apocalypse or the technological singularity? And how that's, because all these things are, I've said this nice, kind of fuzzy stuff about that we're eventually going to get to this leap of consciousness and the era of reconversion. But then you hear people saying, well, we're heading towards a technological apocalypse or singularity.
Yeah, I mean, I hear a lot about the whole digital cashless society, the microchips, and it's already here. People just don't see it, or they're being. Again, I hate talking politics, but I do every once in a while. But they're propagandized by mainstream media, and people in smaller markets like me and YouTubers and stuff like that, they're out there to try to get the truth. But anyways, they're out to they're not out to get the truth of what's actually going on. And,
I think you're right, and I just in my lifetime, there's been I remember making punch cards for the old IBM computers. That's how we were operating computers. I've gone from that to what we got now, and then now we're talking about quantum computing, which will take us to like a that'll be like a the Star Trek universe.
The whole holodecks and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah, and then the idea of bioengineering and creating these genetically superior beings, and humans, that'll have super intelligence and super physicality, and I can see where that this could, if we don't get a handle on it, it could be a big problem. And then of course AI itself.
Yeah. And you think movies like iRobot and everything like that.
Yeah. It's fascinating to me because I enjoy technology, but I also know that we can't let it dictate. In fact, I've written a poem about it. I was inspired when, I don't know if you remember the Russian chess master, Garry Kasparov. When he was defeated, finally, when a human being was defeated by a computer, an IBM computer called, I think it was called Big Blue, or
I can't remember the name of it. I know what
you're
talking
something
about.
Like that, and that was the first time that they had the computer had it. When it first played him, it only won one of the matches, but the second time it won the whole thing, and that's when we crossed over where this supercomputer, which is nothing as powerful as we have now, was able to defeat the Grand Master.
Yeah, and I got a feeling that, like you mentioned, it won one match and then started winning. And I think that the technology that we got out there, it's learning, just like us, we're learning. But if the technology learns too much, like I said, we possibly could be in scenes like iRobot and stuff like that, where the robots will want to take over. But again, we don't know what the future holds for us. We just have to live it until we get there.
And I think you're right. And when I was a little kid, oftentimes what you think, when you ever notice when things you thought when you were a little kid, sometimes they come true.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like you said before, when you're a little kid, you don't know your limitations. Nobody's, you haven't learned that you're supposed to have these guardrails or whatever. So you just can imagine anything. And I remember thinking, it was weird for a little kid to think this, but I thought people are worried about robots becoming human-like. And I thought maybe it's the opposite. Maybe we should worry about humans becoming robot-like.
Yeah. In a way, it's happening, basically. Yeah, people are just going on like mindless zombies.
Yeah.
Or mindless robots, just doing what they're told. And I think it's going to come to a point to where either we wake up or we end up in a technology-filled world to where we have no say.
And I think, excuse me, the algorithms that you hear, these people that have worked for Facebook and other technology companies, Google and so forth, telling us how we're already being manipulated. With all the algorithms. that they want the interaction. So of course they can sell advertising or whatever, or data, and so they can sell our data, what we want, and they base it on these algorithms that create controversy and people's engagement. The whole idea is engagement. They don't really care what the argument is as long as there's engagement, and then they can figure out your likes and dislikes and sell your information. So it's all very manipulative. So kind of in a way, we're already, like you said, approaching this singularity. We're heading headlong into it, and we have to somehow hang on to our humanity. And I think that's what the message Anzar's giving me. It makes more sense, when he says, keep love in your heart. Well, that's one thing machines can't do.
Yeah.
And it's actually something that a lot of, not all alien races, but some, they don't have that ability. They don't know what that is, and they kind of would like to know what it is. Yeah. So we have something they want. Definitely we have something they want, and that's why people get abducted and all this stuff happens. That's. In my case, I don't call it an abduction. I call it a reunion.
Okay, yeah. Now, I've had guests on that. One guest, Chad Meek, his uncle was the late George Van Tassel at Giant Rock.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
And he referred to it as a contactee.
Yeah. There's people that have a very negative impression, and they're like myself. It's been very positive. In fact, my interactions have saved me in some cases. So I understand the trauma. It can be very traumatic. Mm-hmm. My first experience in '64 was so traumatic that for 2 years I had trouble talking. I had to go into speech therapy. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, now, as my wife says, you can't get me to stop talking. But for a while there, I had such a bad speech impediment, stammering and stuttering, that I just decided I didn't want to talk. So I had to for 2 years, I had to get pulled out of class every day for speech therapy until finally I was able to come back. But yeah, so these interactions with these alien beings or extraterrestrials can be very traumatic for people. And then it's just a matter of how do you turn that into something positive, which I think ultimately you have to do.
So now, real quick, because we're getting close to the end of the show.
Sure.
But on Timeless and Snark, did they inspire you to write the book, Anzar, or did he inspire you to write all of them?
Well, it started with Gene, and then like the first Timeless book, I don't mention aliens at all because I was still a little nervous, so I kind of like dipping your toe in the water, and I just talked about the more standard paranormal stuff, ghosts and that kind of stuff. Okay. And then the second one, Timeless Deja Vu, I kind of introduced the concept. And then in Timeless Trinity, I just let it all hang out. I just didn't hide anything. Okay. And then that, of course, there was an Anzar story in there. So then naturally I had some people say, you ought to publish a book just about Anzar. And I said, well, yeah, that's probably a good idea. So I had to ask Anzar. I said, is that okay? And he said, yeah, that'd be fine, as long as it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. You can do it. So I got his permission and I did it. And the comic books that I do, the Snark comic books, Snark 1 and Snark 2, they were actually, I started in 1980, 82, when I went to the Montana Tech. I was working on the newspaper there. I was in engineering school, and I decided to write a comic strip and illustrate it. And it was called Snark. And it had come to me kind of in a vision when I was working in a guard tower at a prison in West Germany. And this half alien, half hybrid entity coming to Earth and having adventures. So that was the idea. So it was a very popular comic strip. But then I flunked out of engineering school, and it just got put on the back burner. and it came back in 2019 when I published the full comic book, Snark comic book, and then now I published a second one, and now there's a kind of an offshoot comic called Dr. Jekyll Alien Hunter, and that's coming out this year. And so, but it's fiction, right? But as my dear friend, another dear friend of mine, a writing mentor, David Wilson, always said, he said, fiction is more true than nonfiction, because in fiction, you just put different names to it and, the characters, but you're basing it on real life. So, what I did is put a lot of the information I've been receiving, some of which I haven't written about yet, into the comic book, but hide it within the story, kind of hide it in plain view within the story of this character named Snark. So it's like a dream come true. I've loved comic books. That's how I learned how to read. So I owe a lot to comic books. Okay. So doing them has been, wonderful. And they're all ages comics. I think it's important to make sure that they're, little kids who are learning how to read and having trouble reading, that they can read them, and that like I did.
Whereas the older generation can enjoy them as well. So
they enjoy them at a different level. Yeah.
So
exactly.
Before we head out, where can people pick up those books as well as the Anzar, as well as the other books that you have?
Yeah, they could just my website captures everything. So BruceOlavSolheim.com, middle name spelled OLAV. So BruceOlavSolheim.com, and there you can see all my books, all the plays I've written, my music, all the stuff I'm doing. But you can also go to Amazon and get all the Timeless trilogy. You can get Anzar, the Progenitor there, and you can get Snark 1 and Snark 2, and as digital comics or as a print comic. Snark 1 is only you'd have to go to my website and email me to get Snark 1 if you're a comic book collector. I still have some copies of Snark number 1 in boxes in the garage that my wife would like me to get rid of. So if people are interested, they could get the collectors, not the e-comic like on Amazon, but the actual Snark number 1 collector comic. So that's where you can find stuff.
All right, and they can get a hold of you on your website and hear more. Like, can they hear more podcasts that are more shows that you've been interviewed on the website as well?
I have some of them listed there, but like I've been on Coast to Coast 4 or 5 times with Nori and with George Knapp, and so I've been a fan of that show, like you, since the Art Bell days. So it was kind of fun. It would have been cool to have met Art Bell. I'll tell you that.
Well, I want to thank you again for coming on. I enjoyed having you on and talking about this and everything like that. And I look forward to talking to you again sometime in the future.
That would be cool. Thank you, Philip. And I'm glad you restarted your podcasting, and good luck with that.
Thank you. All right, so tomorrow night we have my guest, John Moore, as we talk about shamanistic practices and how they relate to the paranormal. We'll also talk about his teaching of the practice as well of his podcast, to talk about healing and all kinds of things. So you can find all that information on the Talk of the Night website, talkofthenight.com. Until tomorrow night, I shall see you on the dark side. Good night from Talk in the Night. Late at night, darkness has fallen. Turn on the radio, and you hear him talking. Listening to what he has to say, all about the paranormal and all of the things. sounds all you can hear.